Hi, I'm Marty from WVA Custom Rods, and I thought I'd just do a quick video for the Riverpiker channel to give you a few tips what to look for when you're buying a new rod, be it a lure rod, a bait rod, whatever, doesn't matter. There's a few things to look for, and there's a few little differences in some of the components that I can give you a few tips on to get the best thing you can for your money. So just starting off at the handle end of a rod, first thing to look at is the reel seat. The only thing I'd say there is if it's got a brand on, and it could be one of, mostly reel seats are pretty good, but if it's got a Fuji brand or an American Tackle brand or an Alps brand, it's going to be pretty good quality, you needn't worry. If it's unbranded, it may be good, it may not, but if you've got a choice between two identical rods and one of them's got a branded reel seat, go for the branded one. It just gives you that indication that there's a little bit more quality to the product. Another thing to look for on a reel seat, of course, is the lock-in mechanism. On a good reel seat, in my eyes, all my reel seats, and I mean every rod that I build, I will always put a lock-in reel nut on, a lock-in nut on the reel seat. If it hasn't got one already, I'll put an extra one on, and that's so that you can tighten your reel down nicely, and there's also a locking nut there to lock it all in place. That just means that no matter how many times you're casting or using the rod during the day, it's not going to work its way loose, and you end up through half the day having to keep tightening your reel up again. So that's just a little tip there. If it's got a locking nut on the reel seat, that's great, that's a bonus. Moving away from the reel seat and looking at handle components. Handles are normally made up of either EVA stroke Duplon, which is like a foam-like material, or cork, good old-fashioned cork. Starting with the EVA, it's a very nice product. EVA looks great, it's modern. The only thing is that there's two different types of EVA that you'll find. One is a very spongy type of EVA foam, which is not the best. What you really need to look for is for the firmer EVA foam, much firmer to the touch, not particularly spongy, got a bit of give in it, but if it's that harder type, it's going to be longer lasting, it's going to be more durable, it's higher quality. So just a little tip there on when you're looking at an EVA rod. Which is better, cork or EVA? It's a personal thing. Neither is better than the other. It's just a very individual decision. Cork's very hard wearing, it's very durable. To us oldies it's great because we love the look of this old sort of cork look, but to you young'uns, you're going to go for the Star Wars look, aren't you, and go for EVA. But it's just a personal choice. So there we are, cork and EVA. Moving on, rod rings. Two different types in general: single-legged rod rings as such, and a double leg rod ring I have here. So on this one we've only got one leg attaching it to the rod. On this guide we have two. Okay, the single leg guys are great on the lighter end of rods. They keep the weight down primarily, and on the lighter rod you don't need the durability of a double leg. These double-legged guides are what you need to look for if you are thinking about purchasing a carp rod or a pike rod or a heavy lure rod, jerk bait rod, something like that. I would always recommend a double leg ring. It's much stronger than a single leg, and on a heavy rod you need a strong set of guides, set of rings. Double leg all the way. Lighter end, singles are fine. Okay, next thing to look for is the join. If you're buying a rod that's more than one piece, so it could be two piece, three or four, just check when you put the halves together. If it's got a spigot, which is like an insert on the bottom half that the top half slides over, when you put it together, just check you've got 10 mil or so minimum of spigot still showing. That will wear down over time. As long as you've got 10 mil or so on a light rod, then it will take years for that to wear down before your top half of your rod butts right up to your bottom half. So look for 10 mil clearance of spigot in between, and you can't go far wrong on a light rod. If you're going for a heavy rod, you might want a little bit more, maybe half an inch or so of spigot showing with the two halves put together. But it's something to just keep an eye on. If you've got half an inch there, then you've got plenty of wear. It'll last years before you have to consider replacing it. So that's spigots and joins. There is another sort of join on a rod, and that's called an overfit. There's no spigot to worry about wearing away. Simply the top half, or the one section of a rod, fits over the bottom section of the rod. That's called an overfit. Now you haven't got to worry about wear, because as it wears it will just push into the top half slightly more, so you'll never have a problem with having to replace a spigot or anything. The general consensus is a spigoted rod is slightly stronger at the join than an overfit. However, technology on the higher end, pricier rods and blanks, the overfits are now a very good quality, and you tend not to have any problem with those anyway. But it's a personal preference between spigot and overfit. I won't go into it now, but both will do the job nicely. And probably the last and probably the most important thing I can tip that I can pass on is to check the varnish on the whippings for the rings. All rods will have their the rings whipped on with thread, and then a layer of varnish applied over the top of the thread to seal everything in. Okay. However, on the inside of a rod ring, which is this side, the side where there's no varnish, this is a varnish here with the thread, on this side there's nothing. However, there will be a little tunnel underneath the ring there, and what you need to look for when you're buying a rod is that there's a little blob of varnish on the inside, on this side of every rod ring, and that little blob of varnish should be dead center, and it should seal up the inner part of the rod ring where it meets the blank. Okay, if you can look down the inner side and see a little tunnel, then it hasn't got any varnish, and what that means is moisture, rain will get underneath, eventually will get underneath that rod ring. It'll begin to make the varnish on this side cloudy. You'll get like a milky cloud start to come through your varnish, and you'll need to at some point get that ring whips on again. It's the biggest indication of a quality and especially a hand-built rod. You'll find if you get a rod built by a rod builder such as myself, there will always, the inside of each guide will have this little tiny blob of varnish there to seal the tunnel. If you buy one off the shelf, will you get that? I'm not sure. I haven't bought a rod off the shelf for a while now, but it is something, especially if I was spending, sort of good money at the higher end on a rod, I would always check for that little piece of varnish on the inside which seals the tunnel underneath the thread. I certainly wouldn't want to spend a good, sort of big money or buy a high-end rod without seeing that little bit of varnish. So that'll stop any problems in years to come, that little tiny spot. So that's about it really, just a few things to look for. I hope it's helped, and if you're going to spend money on a rod, just those few little things might make the difference between buying a good one or finding you've wasted your money and something's gone wrong within the first year or so. Thanks for watching, and any questions, get in touch with Paul, and he can ask me and I'll try and get back to you or give you an answer.